All right. Thank you all for joining. Just a reminder that the first 30 minutes of the presentation is prepared material. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to type them into the chat bar or message me directly. We also have a questions and answers period at the end, so you can unmute your microphone at that point and ask a question. But for the beginning of the presentation, please keep your microphones muted. Thank you all for joining, and I'll pass it over to Alan.
Thank you, Patrick. Good morning. Good evening to those that are joining us internationally as well. We recognize that Amazon sells around the world, and there are different variables changing around the world. And we include a portion of those in little snapshots today, as well as expand on those in the future. In the past, this time that we've had is for Amazon updates. We focused primarily on COVID-19 because that was the event that was causing the most significant change at the time. And moving forward, we are going to change the agenda just slightly moving forward. And a little bit today, you'll see that updates to Amazon are significantly impacted still by COVID-19. However, the retail environment is also changing dramatically as a result of COVID-19, but also as we're looking to the future, COVID-19 will remain a variable that is impacting our lives very significantly. However, there are other factors that are coming to play as well, and we'll incorporate some of those today, and we'll see moving into the future as well that those will come into play. And with that, we're recognizing that we'll move this call likely to a monthly cadence moving forward and consolidate those changes and updates that have occurred in the past month, as well as what we see into the future. So incorporating more Amazon updates in the future in terms of the broader environment. You'll see that in today's presentation as well as the future. Those changes and updates and how they impact Amazon vendors, particularly first-party vendors, and then vendor actions to consider as well as the question and answer period. With COVID-19 having a dramatic impact and shutting states down starting March 23rd through April 7th, there you can see where the states in the United States, many things were shut down. Across the globe, there was similar activity taking place in terms of stay-at-home orders being implemented. So today, or yesterday I should say, June 15th, we're seeing a dramatic reopening of U.S. economies. Every state except for 3 is in a state of reopening in some phase, or however, lockdown stay-at-home orders are staying in effect that continue to impact e-commerce and consumer purchases. And as a result, we're seeing Amazon's business is expected to see strong sales in the coming months. Even though economies are reopening, many people are more comfortable shopping online and not venturing back to the store quite yet. From a broader impact of what's happening in the world, COVID-19, a very significant impact from the left to right. The small slide, you can see that in Seattle, just visually, the Gap was closed completely. It started to reopen in the second image there. There's just one little door open with a sign next to it. And then several weeks ago, Gap was nearly fully open and had all of it was considering reopening completely. They had events with protests that impacted downtown Seattle and have spread around the world, and that has had a further impact on retail. Many of those shops that were reopening have, in larger cities, been impacted to some extent where they've needed to close for the interim. We expect that there is a reopening starting to occur and an adjustment in communities around the world. The Nordstrom here in Seattle is still closed. The Macy's on the right-hand side, you can see, is still all boarded up. An ironic note of all things is this is one of Macy's major and historic sites as a store. This store of Macy's is kind of a symbol of retail in general, of what's happening. The top floors are now rented by Amazon. And this building, if you were to come visit Seattle, whereas it says Macy's on the outside, and it has a historic plaque on the bottom floor, looking inside is now an employee Amazon check-in desk. Amazon is literally physically taking over some of these past retail sites. Broader changes in the retail environment, we're seeing many closures in the United States, including bankruptcies, the protests impacting business in major cities, and also significant online additions that are happening. In the retail side, J.Crew, Neiman Marcus, JCPenney's have all filed for bankruptcy back in May. 16 Nordstrom stores closed. Then, as a result of the protest, Target and Walmart also closed hundreds of stores. And how we believe that this has pushed consumers to continue considering online purchases. And so that has benefited Amazon in terms of increasing its sales and customer base. Tier 1 stores are also permanently closing. And you can see with 540 stores, this is a changing landscape of retail. Consumers are looking online for many of their products now. In fact, the Forrester and Bloomreach report found that half of consumers are shopping online for products that they had always purchased in person. And this is impacting not only the consumer space, but also the business space, as businesses are looking online for products that in the past they would want to go into the store and get a touch and feel of it. Now they know and have the touch and feel of it and are much more comfortable purchasing online rather than going into a store where they have to touch and feel. The touch and feel is actually now a negative for many consumers. And the last bullet there, Walmart is adding 1,200 Shopify sellers to its marketplace this year. Why this is added is that Walmart in the United States and around the world is a very significant competitor for Amazon. And anything that it does is going to alter or impact the landscape significantly. This one, as Walmart absorbed Jet.com and other .coms in the past, this is a significant way that they're going to increase the sellers on their marketplace, and they're hoping to draw additional not only stores and products and shops, but also the customers that might be looking for products. Even with a number like 1,200, so here, Amazon, even with Walmart adding 1,200 Shopify sellers, Amazon in 2020 is still going to be the dramatically larger share of the e-commerce revenue. Walmart moving ahead of eBay for the first time in terms of reporting to be at 5.8% of online e-commerce and eBay dropping below. Amazon expected to be 38% of e-commerce market share. Here, COVID-19 still is impacting Amazon. They are spending $4 billion through the end of June to not only deliver products to consumers, but also internally make a safe environment for their employees. They're shooting to test employees every 2 weeks, which is their goal. They're currently not doing that. However, they have a system and process in place where they're trying to make that happen. The pictures on the right-hand side show laboratories that they're actually building to get the results of those tests. And they continue to provide free masks to customers at Whole Food stores as well. An indication, this last bullet in June, of Amazon strong growth expected and continued into the future is that Amazon announced hiring additional workers, and they've hired more than 175 temp workers now. They've announced in June that they're going to make 125 to 150,000 of those permanent positions. So you can imagine that that's an enormous company being added. That would, if we look at 125,000, that would be one of the largest employers in most states, if not in the United States and around the world. And in addition to making 125,000 positions permanent, they're looking at making the remaining permanent, and they have them on contract options for up to 11 months. So that's an indication that Amazon not only is growing much more than people have seen kind of on the surface, but is also expecting internally to continue growing significantly in the future. With that, Amazon orders do remain elevated for most accounts and are tracking customer sales now. So in the past, Amazon was reporting 17 to 25% growth. In fact, in Q2, it's likely that they're going to grow year over year 30 to 55% as a company, which for a company their size is an enormous growth. And that is spread across categories some larger than others. However, orders are now aligned with higher sales from increased online purchasing and are expected to remain high. So consumers that have become comfortable purchasing online are now expected, in many cases, to remain shopping online. They found that convenience to be very helpful. In fact, according to Adobe data, e-commerce sales in May reached $82.5 billion, and that was up 78% year over year. So although a 30 to 55% might be expected in Q2, you can see in May the e-commerce sales are even much greater than that. So a 30 to 55% is likely an average that may be a little skewed lower because of low numbers in April. In a RBC study or survey, there were 2,800 people that were asked which online sites they most commonly use, and 91% said Amazon. Walmart was a distant number 2 at 43%, and Target further back at 30%, and then eBay at 29%. Amazon is really benefiting from the surge of online sales. This is the slide previously that I mentioned. Walmart is trailing Amazon, and Amazon has the lead in the market share, expected to be at 38% this year. In addition to expecting to have a growth in market share, surprisingly, Amazon has continued to expand its customer base. You would think with over 100 million Prime members now in the United States that it would be difficult for them to expand their membership base. However, they've found a way to provide essentially Prime benefits to individuals that are receiving SNAP benefits. These individuals are in assistance programs who may have limited mobility, and Amazon has increased the number of states since COVID started. They now accept in many U.S. states the SNAP EBT benefit card. So this is further expanding their consumer base and who they're able to reach, particularly in the grocery space. This was an area that in the past was dominated by Walmart. So they're moving into this space. And with that, they've given free access to Amazon Fresh without a Prime membership to the consumers that have an EBT card. This allows consumers who may have limited resources to be able to get their produce and groceries in general delivered directly to their homes so that they don't have to move and don't have to go to a store at this time, further expanding Amazon's consumer base. In the past, we've also noted that Amazon's non-core businesses were impacted. They were completely shut down. Now, as we're seeing the transition from Amazon feeling as though it's adapting to the COVID environment and the threat and danger of the pandemic, Amazon is opening select Amazon Books, Amazon 4-star, and Amazon pop-up stores, as well as Go stores. They have procedures such as the image in gray on the right-hand portion of the slide where they're asking people to follow through in a one-way aisle shopping plan to maximize social distancing, to selectively opening stores where they can have manage crowds and make sure that there are social distancing for individuals. A significant call out is on the left-hand slide. The Amazon Go store, which opened up, is actually an Amazon Go grocery. So instead of just a small, typically the Amazon Go store was sandwiches, a convenience store level, more like a 7-Eleven or a small convenience store like a gas station. The Amazon Go grocery is actually a full-scale grocery store where you can get everything. You can walk in, scan the app, grab your groceries, and walk out without checking out. I expect it's not only important to realize for grocery, it's also very significant to think about the rest of commerce of that technology. Amazon is now being willing to sell as a service to other organizations. So again, like AWS, where Amazon has built a tool or technology, others are able to tap into that, and Amazon then uses that as additional revenue. How that helps them in the retail space is that's serving them not only to serve customers faster, and it also helps them understand how consumers react and engage with the technology. And they're also able to create additional revenue. So this opening of non-core business of Amazon is a significant indicator that Amazon feels as though it is at a very good point moving in operations and has adapted and will continue to adapt within its capacity, well within its capacity, and continue to move forward. Impacts to Amazon vendors continue in terms of product suspensions. This is particularly a focus as regulatory scrutiny increases. What does this mean? Well, as the EPA has issued orders to Amazon directing them to stop selling unproven or unsafe disinfectants or face penalties, this is forcing Amazon to create systems to look at its product selection and suspend products. In many cases, there are algorithms that are written and not a human being, so product suspensions, not only for compliance issues, but now regulatory issues are increasing across catalogs. This is a significant call out because it's difficult to see these suspensions when Amazon does them if you have more than, say, 100 products in your catalog. And we have tools internally that we're looking at that so we can try to grab those suspensions faster. Amazon also continues to work on counterfeits and price gouging. The most significant call out on the last bullet there is that 3M is actually suing an Amazon seller for selling N95 masks for 18 times list price. So in the past, people were trying to get Amazon to enforce that. Companies such as 3M are now suing Amazon sellers. I believe that's going to impact and increase not only the regulation of the 3P marketplace, but also increase maybe a little bit more scrutiny on those sellers and making 3P an area where people have more considerations to think about. In the 1P or first party space, we have to work with product suspensions. In this case, sellers are also dealing with lawsuits from others on the outside. So that will overall help vendors or sellers on Amazon, first party sellers, because they're in a valid and credible position as selling correct products at the right price on Amazon. The final item in terms of the broader scope or environment of Amazon is that there were cost decreases from 4A tariffs. So phase one of the United States and China trade deal, section 301 lists 4A tariffs were set to decrease to 7.5% effective February 14th. And Amazon, in line with that change, they reduced cost increases that had been submitted to Amazon by 50%. What this means is that effective April 1st, Amazon changed costs in some people's catalogs. We've seen some of that. So we are reviewing our clients' catalogs to make sure that the costs are at the same and correct level. This is one thing that may have changed costs, or ASINs may have incorrectly gotten caught up in this. So important time to take a look at costs. The last item is internationally. The EU antitrust regulator plans to file a formal complaint against Amazon over the way that it treats third-party sellers. And this is also having increased regulatory scrutiny in the United States. So this international and national regulatory review of Amazon's 3P business can make a 1P area much more appealing as these regulations increase. We won't have to react and understand those.
Okay, in terms of Vendor Central, some changes there, or newer changes anyway. Born to Run is now available. That got reactivated for all clients and all vendors on Amazon June 9th. Prime Day deals, they may be available for select vendors or some categories. The submission dates for them was June 14th for Lightning deals, and then June 17th for best deals. Coupons have not been asked for yet by Amazon, so you can go and submit those for dates, but you can't actually select for Prime Day just yet. If you are trying to schedule an LD, though, and it's past the submission date, you can always reach out to your VM and see if you can possibly get it included still. And then the newer program, the bulk buy offers, that's currently in beta, and it's available to select vendors. In terms of operations, Amazon is issuing bulk buys now, so this indicates that things are starting to return to normal in terms of the way Amazon operates anyway. Purchase orders are still elevated, though, so the POs that we saw during the COVID-19 crisis, those seem to be continuing. As mentioned by Al, that demand has basically shifted and has remained online. It may have decreased slightly, but overall it is remaining elevated. Dropship orders, though, are starting to decrease. So this indicates Amazon's inventory is now starting to catch up to demand. We're still seeing that it's above average for most accounts. So during the COVID-19 crisis, when a lot of the demand did shift online, we were seeing dropship up there around 22% or so for most of the accounts that have it enabled. Now it's starting to drop down a little bit lower. It's about 7% on average, but that still is elevated compared to where it is pre-COVID-19 or what we've seen in years past, where normally it trends around 2.5% or so. As mentioned, Born to Run is activated again, so that got reactivated on June 9th, so you can go and submit products again for that. If you did have Born to Run before that and it got, you do have that extension that's still in place there, depending on when it was actually submitted. Chargebacks, as we mentioned during the last presentation, there is still a waiver in place for on-time non-compliance. So for on-time non-compliance, June 1st, basically, till the 30th, you've got 5 extra calendar days after the window ends. And then starting July 1st, it'll go reduced down to 3 calendar days. June 1st to the 30th for down confirm, you've got 10 days after the window start date before you receive a chargeback for that. And again, this is all based upon your trailing 4-week on-time performance. That's how that's going to be calculated. Something new that Amazon started rolling out within the compliance documents. So you should be receiving this email. Normally they come out every single Wednesday. Amazon has now added a new compliance document for the North American Selection Policy, so NASP they're calling it. This is for the North American Fulfillment Network, basically products that are shipping from USFC to either Canada or Mexico. Amazon is selecting the documentation, Amazon is selecting the ASINs that are needed for the documentation here. But basically, they're asking for documentation in order to import those products into Amazon Canada or Amazon.com Mexico. If you don't want your products to actually go there and Amazon's asking for it and you actually receive that little snippet there, below all this, you can reject that if you want to, or you can submit the required documentation, and then your products can go into Amazon Canada and Amazon Mexico. This doesn't actually affect your POs if you have a vendor central account in there. It'll just make it so that any product that's shipped into an Amazon USFC can now be shipped to customers in Canada or Mexico.
All right, now we will open it up to questions and answers. So I did receive a question earlier on this week, and I was hoping Alan and Dave could weigh in a little bit on it. So now that customer sales have really picked up, and a lot of clients on here, a lot of vendors are advertising, how do you determine which products to include in your advertising campaigns? And should you still run advertisements on top selling items?
Dave, you want to take that? You're dealing with that day in and day out.
Sorry about that. Could you actually repeat that question again, Patrick?
Yeah. So how do you determine which products to include in your advertising campaigns? And should you still run advertisements on top selling items?
Okay. Yeah. So the way that I try and look at it is I try and look at product search history on the product. So ideally, I guess it comes down to your budget when you're looking at it as a whole. So how much budget do I actually have and where do I want to put that budget towards everything? In an ideal world, you'd have enough budget to advertise for everything. And the reason behind that is that even on your top products that might rank very high in organic search, if you don't advertise on those products, then that allows a competitor to come in there and take one of those top slots and then gradually steal your sales. So what I try and do anyway on my products is products that appear on page 2 or further within search. I want to advertise those the most to try and push those up, or products that are below the fold also initially on a search page for a certain term. And they're normally what I'll try and push most of my budget to, but then products that rank high organically as well, I'll still put some advertisement towards that, normally like a low cost per click ad or something, just so that I can have something in there to prevent competitors from going on there and stealing everything on those in terms of budgeting. And that's how I'll try and look at it. And then, I mean, in products in general, you're just looking at the individual search terms to see which ones you should advertise and which ones you maybe want to put down lower on the chain of where you spend your budget.
And they say he's given some good tips there, as we always think too, is retail ready. That is a foundation for us to start with. Is we want to have fantastic content and make sure that it's in stock. Dave stepped in to make it to mentioning the competitive marketplace, and so that's in this space in particular. There's some people are unable to fund marketing currently, and so as Dave mentioned, if you don't have the budget, that's understandable. If you do have budget and can make it available, this is a time when it's excellent to do. If your content is very good and you have the inventory, then there are many more consumers out there looking for products.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. I mean, if anyone else has a question, you can unmute and ask if you'd like. But if not, we can move on to the summary.
As I mentioned at the beginning, there are many changes that will continue to happen with Amazon. It will broaden this discussion from the impact of COVID also out to the retail environment and future changes that we're seeing. Amazon is doing many adjustments and improvements to its marketing, so I anticipate that will be a future addition that will spotlight some of those capabilities as well as tools that we have to help manage that. As Amazon begins to move into this period of more stability, I guess, we will move this to a monthly call and make it broad and ensure that it's focused on new tactics and strategies that can help you drive your business on Amazon. We look forward to sharing those updates with you and new capabilities, not only from the marketing piece, but also how Amazon is adjusting the actual Vendor Central portal. There's more to come. Amazon always keeps it new and changing. We'll bring those new and updates to you each month.